stream. I'm just doing it like this because I look like shit, and I honestly don't fucking feel like getting my phone set up or my iPad set up to do it. This is going to basically just be kind of an informational video. Let me double check, make sure my sound is working and stuff. So I definitely don't want to do this more than once. Okay. Looks good. Okay. Everything seems to be in order. Okay. So I was gonna do this into like two different videos. I think I'm just gonna kind of do like one subject and then the other. Before I get into the the nitty gritty undebatable ones, I want to go over just my opinion on how things are going with like gaming reviews and what that effect has on the community in the gaming world, because I feel like it's making an impact in a negative light. Something that happens in entertainment in general, not just in video games, is sales automatically dictate if there's going to be sequels, if we're going to see much support, because a company isn't going to spend a lot of money unless they're going to make money. That's why we only get like what we have movies that were some liked, some didn't like, but we only got one of those because they either didn't make the money or whatever the case is, and yada yada. And I feel like video game reviewers, these companies will give these high streamers or these reviewers early copies of games, and these guys will feel incentivized to speak really highly of it, and then you, like person A, is like, oh, this game's coming out and I've been looking for it for a while, but do I want to get it? And then they go and get it and they realize, oh my god, this is terrible. Like, what the hell is this person talking about? I know that's happened to me on more than one occasion. It's not so much with the AAA titles, but a lot of it has to do with the indie titles. It's the same thing with movies. A lot of these critics are biased, or they have, they get paid to review these things. So obviously they're gonna, try to do the whatever they're getting paid for justice, so they can continue getting money from it. I mean, money is motivation for 99% of what happens in this world, unfortunately. And I feel like the fact that, because before, if you wanted to find out, like if you heard about a game from your friend, you're like, oh, okay, and then you'd actually check it out because your friend played it and they showed you all these things, and that is different. But like when we go to get, like, say, I don't know, Street Fighter V is a really good example. Street Fighter V got horrible reviews because the people that were reviewing the game, they were either extremely casual, or they bought it for some, like, I don't want to say stupid, but like they bought it for the wrong reasons. So these reviewers like slammed the game, and it hurt its sales dramatically. Now Capcom is still showing support for the game, but if it was a smaller company that didn't have all those big IPs standing behind it, like, we might have seen the last Street Fighter game ever, because nobody had anything good to say. I mean, I played the game on release. Yeah, is the online working? No. Was the game pretty bare bone? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, most people, not all, but most people buy a fighting game because they want to play with their friends. I mean, hell, that's why I did. That's why a lot of people did. So they got. I mean, I don't want to like go too deep into the Street Fighter V debate, but the game was not perfect, absolutely not, and the combo systems are a little bit easier, but it wasn't a bad game. But critically, it did horrible, like compared to, I don't know, Street Fighter 4. Like Street Fighter 4 did way better than 5, and it's because 4 had all these little, I hate to say like casual friendly things, but they kind of did. They had, it had an arcade mode, it had this and that, and 5, for what it was on release, was a small roster. It had, you had arcade mode and stuff like that, and I really hate that. I have a love-hate kind of opinion about it, about how easy it is for everybody to get information. Before, if you wanted a review on a video game, you probably got a magazine or whatever, and now it's, you go on YouTube or you go on Google and you just research it, and a lot of these reviews aren't honest. They're biased, really biased. Like, they're sending, the fighting game companies are sending copies of their games to like these YouTubers that have a big following, but they're not big in the fighting game community, and if they are, they're big on like casual side of it. So it just became this thing where it's becoming worse and worse, and I fear that we're gonna get to a point to where, unless everybody loves the game, we're gonna stop seeing sequels, and I would hate to see that happen. I mean, that's happened with. I mean, look at Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 wasn't bad in and of itself. It wasn't a very good Resident Evil game, no. But it was leaps and bounds better than 5. 5 is critically praised. People love 5 for some reason. But 6, like, continues and improves on the system, and it's automatically bad. Now, did the revamp for 7 have to happen? Yeah, of course it did. The series was not Resident Evil anymore. It was a QTE shooter at that point, and then in that respect, they divided their fan base, and the reviews for 6 were appallingly bad. I mean, nobody even had anything good to say, and I will say 6 had a few campaigns that were a little like on the side, but it had some good ones too. There was still good to be had in it, and I feel like these reviewers aren't giving those things justice, and I really hate that. I would like to see more honest reviews, more people that are, these are the pros and these are the cons, and this is what I think, and this is what I've seen, and this is what I know, and this is my background, and get people reviewing these games that actually have some sort of credibility in the field. Like, it would be like me trying to review a sports game. I don't play sports games. I don't give a crap about them. I know next to nothing. And to sit there and pop a sports game in and like try to critique it would be asinine. I mean, I don't know. I'm at this opinion where I just think that there's a lot of bias. Or now, especially now, we're in the middle of this console war between Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, and you have like the people who are like, and they call these guys fanboys. Like, it gets impossible for them to enjoy all the systems or something. I don't know. It's beyond me. Like, why? Like, I don't own an Xbox, and I probably never will. But it's not because I think I'm better than the people who play on Xbox. I don't. I think that people who are on Xbox, that the video game market is kind of like catered to them differently, and they're a different kind of player. Absolutely. I feel like sometimes the Microsoft side is usually a lot of trolls and stuff like that, because they had games like Halo, and Microsoft made it easier for them to harass people and things like that. Not so much on Xbox One, but the 360, super easy. I mean, it was easy to message people, and I know Microsoft didn't do that intentionally, but it was just the way the system was made. And you had a lot of like toxic people and things like that, and but we're in the middle of this giant console war. So like, okay, if I'm Nintendo and I want someone to give me a review on my game, that would be like me saying, all right, I'm going to send this over to this guy who primarily plays PlayStation 4. Like, that guy isn't going to give me an honest, fair review because most people are biased and most people are really like, well, it's from Nintendo, so what are you going to expect? Blah blah blah. And you know, all these big companies, they've all done stupid shit. And I think having console exclusive games is a horrible system, and it needs to be addressed. I hate that. Like, I hated it when Street Fighter V came out because we only got Street Fighter V on PS4 and computer, and it alienated the audience. Like, the people who have, like, I personally know 3 or 4 Xbox users that just said, okay, whatever, and they didn't take part in it. They didn't have anything to do with it, and that is really disappointing. I feel like that is, it's like we're taking a step backwards. Online gaming was meant to bring people together, and I feel like it's not doing that. I feel like we're still segregated, we're still apart, we're still off on our own doing whatever. You know, it's like me and Pat play on PS4, but if we wanted, say, Mike to play with us, it'd be possible. Like, I have Destiny 2, and Mike has Destiny 2, and Mike plays Destiny 2, but I can't play with Mike because we have 2 different consoles. I mean, why is that even a thing at this point? Like, that is a stupid system. It needs to be addressed. It needs to change. But it's never going to because people don't want to. And they're like, oh, well, I love Xbox, or I love PlayStation, or I love Nintendo. Who cares? You all play video games. We're all part of the same club. Like, it doesn't matter what system you like to play on. Do I like that? I mean, I like PlayStation because I like the controller. I'm not even going to lie. Like, I like the controller. I don't like the Xbox controller. I never have. Not in any iteration. That is probably one of the only reasons I started on PlayStation, and now it's because they carry more titles that I like to play. And I like the interface a lot. But that doesn't mean that someone who plays on Xbox One or the Switch is inherently worse. And I mean, I'll admit I am as guilty as anybody, and I have done it. And then as soon as I started to realize I was doing it, I stopped. Like, I have friends, like my friend Pat loves the Switch. I have lost a lot of respect for Nintendo over the years. And the release of this SNES is another proof. We still have people who are scalping it. We still have people who didn't get a chance. I mean, when something releases like that, I think everybody should have the option to own one. That will completely eliminate the scalper. But you know, like 80% of the people that bought it were scalpers. And now Joe Blow next month is like, oh, Mom, I want this for Christmas, and the thing's gonna run that person like $500 or $600 that it was retailed at $80 because Nintendo didn't feel like making enough units. And it's not because they don't have the money. Nintendo's like stupid profitable right now, especially after Pokemon Go. They are sitting pretty, and the Switch is a massive success as far as console releases go. But sometimes I feel like Nintendo does this shit on purpose so that they can guarantee they're going to see big sales. Because now people are going to want to buy their stuff right when it comes out, because if they don't, they're not going to get one. And I don't know, I feel like it's a bad system overall. That's kind of my opinion on video games in general, really, as of late. Like, another one is Resident Evil 7. The only way you can play it in VR is if you play on a PS4. That is stupid, because Sony has an agreement with Capcom that they have to give only PlayStation users access to VR. Now, I can't play VR in my current house, it just wouldn't work, but other players have told me it's a completely different experience. PC players can't use VR. Xbox players can't use VR. And I don't know, I feel like it's a broken system. It's what corporations and greed get you. This is what they get you. Segregation, separation from your fellow gamers, and I feel like that is a horrible, horrible system. So, that's kind of just my opinion on it. I think that it's bad for business. I think it's bad for the community. I think that we could all, everybody could do better. But at the end of the day, whoever makes the games, they decide how they distribute them. It's disappointing, but it is just a fact of life. Okay, so that was the first cluster. And as you can see, it didn't take very long, so that's kind of like why I decided to make them both into one, because that would be a 10-minute video. Not worth it for me. Okay, this next one is controversial as hell, and I understand that going into this. What I stress to you is just try to listen with an open mind. I'm going to go over my background in life, what I've kind of gone through myself, and what has happened to me. I grew up in a small town called Holiday. It was a scary place, not for everybody. My friends didn't really have it too bad. They lived in the nicer part, but I lived in the not nice part of Holiday, and there were constantly things that were happening that changed the person I am and I was. I had people like beating up on my brothers and sisters. Well, let me elaborate a little bit on like how I grew up. So I was born in California. My mother's husband at the time, which would have been my stepdad, he beat me down pretty hard. He picked me up and slammed me headfirst into a wall, and it literally shook my spine into a different shape. So I constantly have back problems. My grandfather moved us to Florida at that point, and this is about the time I was like 5. And I have two brothers, one sister, and well, I have 2 sisters technically, but we only had one with us. The other one was stayed in California. And my mom was disabled. She had epilepsy. My mom was definitely not perfect. She did her fair share of stupid. I was old enough to kind of know what she was doing, where my brothers and sisters they didn't know, and it didn't really register to them what was happening. So anyway, I was the big brother. I had to protect my brothers and sisters. So fast forward a little bit into Holiday, it was a rough neighborhood. We had people that were getting beat up, jumped, stolen, robbed. Just everything that it could go wrong, it went wrong in Holiday. I was very poor. My mom was disabled. She was on SSI at the time, which is basically just like a government paycheck so that she could provide shelter for us and things like that. The school was harder. School was real tough growing up, especially when you don't have a lot of money, you didn't have a lot of clothes, you didn't have a lot of possessions. It was really tough. I was diagnosed with depression pretty early in my life, about the age of 7, and they shoved every pill they could find down my throat. I don't want to talk too much about like how it was growing up. I just want to give you guys kind of a perspective on what my surroundings were, because I believe that we're each in charge of how our lives affect us, either positive or negatively, things like that. So like I said, I was diagnosed with depression pretty early on. I had the want to end it, but I was really little yet, so I didn't know what those feelings actually meant, and I didn't know how I would go about doing it. But I knew that I didn't. There were days that I woke up and then I would get mad because I woke up. And I was a very violent kid, mainly due to how I had to be, because I had brothers and sisters to protect and things like that, and a lot of it was I was sick and tired of being made fun of all the time. I was constantly being teased, and I had it like it got super hard to deal with. So throughout my life, I've been a father. I am a father. I had a daughter, and she passed away. And throughout my life, I've probably tried to commit suicide about 5 times. Not every one of them was a genuine attempt. I think I wanted somebody to see if anybody cared. So it was kind of a couple of times were for attention, but a couple times I got caught in the middle of it. And on that note, I want to talk about just how people's opinion is about suicide and how that impacts your family and friends. A lot of people will tell you that suicide is a selfish act. It is my opinion. Yeah. It's my opinion that it's not always selfish for me, because I feel that when we get to a point to where we decide that we want to commit suicide, yeah, I feel you. It's really hard. I feel like our ability to cope with the problems versus the problem themselves, if our ability to cope is less than the amount of severity of the problem, then that's when that feeling of suicide comes into play, and that's when we decide, I can't do this anymore. And then you make that decision. Now, thinking about committing suicide and going through the actual attempt are like massively different, and they're huge. And if you know that how you're feeling, if you know that if you're feeling that to that point to where you want to do something like that, there's no one's going to be able to just tell you something that is going to like wipe the board. They're going to be like, oh, well, it's fine, just don't do that, and then you're immediately going to be better. It doesn't work that way. It helps to talk to other people that can relate to you, that can understand how you feel. Maybe they're not perfect either, but they're not going to sit there and tell you, oh, well, you're a stupid person for doing this, or that's a stupid emotion, why are you feeling that? Like, telling somebody that is feeling like that is the worst thing you can do. Like, it is literally the worst thing you can do, because you're making them feel worse about it, about feeling emotions. And I have had it happen to me so many times. Like, I've had my mother tell me that, my brothers tell me that, some of my old people that used to be my friends, like, they would tell me that, and it doesn't do anything. It's not positive. It doesn't fix any problems. It just drives you worse, and you're further down that rabbit hole to where the point where you're just done at that point. You're like, I can't do this. When my daughter died, I did not want to live anymore. Like, I had made that decision. And just to give you a little perspective on my life and what I have a woman that loves me. I have a stepson that adores me. I have a 2-year-old son. We own our house. We don't have a mortgage. It's flat out ours. I own my car. I have 3 big screen TVs in my house. I have 2 PS4s. I have an iPad that's ours flat out. Like, I have good things. And depression and suicidal thoughts and all this stuff has nothing to do with how your life is. Because the biggest excuse I would hear from people when they would find out how, like, because I had people come to the hospital after my attempts, and they would be like, you have so much stuff, why would you do this? Like, that has nothing to do with how you feel. That has nothing to do with it. Money can be a problem, absolutely. Can money do something? Like, can money affect you in that way? Yes, absolutely it can. But that's not the actual problem. That is a symptom of the problem. The problem is much worse, and it is much more like scary and intimidating. And excuse me, I need to get a drink. I'm super dehydrated. So I have tried to commit suicide about 5 times, and about 3 of those times were genuine. And I have 2 different people, like, in my mind all the time. I have the fight or flight, violent, horrible side, and then I have the dad, the boyfriend, the provider side. And I have both of those guys can't come out at the same time. I have to figure out how to win, and I have to do that without medication, without trying to ignore it, not trying to bog it down. I have to actually deal with both sides, and it is not an easy job. No, having money has nothing to do with it. Literally nothing. Like I feel I understand you completely. Money, like literally last year, well, no, about 2 years ago when my son was born, we got a check for $164,000, and it did not affect my depression. It let me pay off bills, absolutely. It let me pay off the house. It was great. We got to go on vacation and all this stuff. And money is good, absolutely. We need it to survive. But at the end of the day, it's you and how you cope with everything and how you value yourself. And coming from a poor area, being made fun of all the time, having to fight people and to be violent and to hurt them and to do all those things and to try to just find 1 ounce of happiness, I can tell you without a doubt in my mind, excuse me, that there is a better way. There's a better life. And it has nothing to do with your money situation or, other people might have situations to where like they can't get a girl to like them or a guy or a guy. I'm not saying you have to be straight, and then if you're homosexual, you have even worse problems. You have all those different variables, or not feeling like you belong anywhere. And I had that problem too. Growing up, I had that problem where I never felt I belonged. I had my mom throwing anything she could at me for me to deal with because she was a crazy drug addict and did not want to deal with it. And I had all these things, all these different things coming at me from every angle, and trying to grow up, to be a kid, to develop, and then deal with all these problems. It was hard and scary and terrifying, and like anxiety too, absolutely. And that's another thing, is that if you tell somebody you have anxiety, they're like, oh, you don't look like you do. Like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. First of all, anxiety is a super broad term, and it can mean any kind of anxiety. You could have social anxiety, you could have stress anxiety, you could have anxiety, like me, I have pretty bad anxiety too. And when I play, like if I play Marvel online, like if I play Marvel's Capcom Infinite online, at a certain point my hands will start to shake really bad and my anxiety will just like flare. It doesn't happen with Street Fighter 5, but it happens like with other games. And most people look at me and they're like, oh, you don't look like you have anxiety, you don't look depressed. Like, just because I don't have a frown on my face and does not mean that I'm not depressed. I'm always dealing with depression. It's in me. It's not an emotion. Depression's not an emotion, it's a condition. And it's really tough out there, and I understand this world is a horrible, horrible, ugly place, and it's scary and intimidating, and it makes you question the morality of people. I mean, we have, and I don't want to get into that, but we have, like crazy things going on in the country and things like that, and there's all these different variables, and it's a tough place. Yeah, it almost never can be seen, honestly, in my experience. Like, when I was in high school, I found kind of my niche with a group that had like a group of misfits, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I can be myself. I don't have to be fake, and I don't have to like put on the mask, and I don't have to do all these things. Like, they were just themselves, and they didn't care what anybody had to say. And those people would eventually become my family for a long time. They were like the best people I could have known at the time. And honestly, I was so close. Like, I was literally like minutes from ending it, because I was so done with dealing with my mom and dealing with my brothers and sisters and dealing with the kids in school and the teachers and the stress that is being a teenager and all these things. I was so over it. I was so done. And then I met that group, and they literally saved my life. And I still talk to some of them to this day. Not all of them, because people change over the years. But, now I'm in my 30s, so, I'm 34 now. Oh, I'm 33. I'll be 34 soon. But it's it's a scary, sick, sad world. And all I can ask is that if you guys know anybody, or you're feeling this way, and you can tell other people to do this, don't ever tell them that suicide is selfish, because they don't care what your opinion is on what they're going to do. Because nobody does, man. Nobody does. if you know someone who's depressed, or you're feeling depressed, and you're feeling on you're feeling on like you're on that edge, like you're gonna do something that is permanent, understand it's not selfish. It's not. I'm not telling you to go do it, but I am telling you to think about it, and don't tell other people that it's a selfish choice. Talk to them and actually find out why they feel that way, because there's different levels of it. There's different degree of, is this because of a girl? And I know that sounds like a really stupid thing to say, but it is super true. Is this over a relationship? If it's over a relationship, that can be fixed. That can be talked out of. Like you can fix that problem. But if it's like this person actually hates themselves and they just don't want to do anything anymore, ask them. Don't be negative about it. Just talk to them and say, hey, maybe we can sit down and have a conversation. Maybe we can talk about it. Maybe we can do something that isn't so dramatic and permanent. Because I went from the guy who grew up in a shithole town full of horrible people and drugs and everything you could find to hurt other people with. Yeah, it's really scary. If you're feeling that way, as long as I'm streaming, you guys can always come talk to me. Like, if you need to come in, even if it has nothing to do with the video game, and you just want to talk, I will always listen 24/7. I do not care. And I usually stream about 10 o'clock Eastern till about 2 a.m. But if I'm here, I will always listen. There's other people that could do the same thing, and the best thing you can do as a friend or a family member is just to talk to them and help them understand that you're not there to make them feel worse. Because I can't tell you how many times that it is Grevin 84. It's in the top right hand corner of the screen. We're buying Street Fighter 5 stuff. It's a scary world, and I get it. And believe me, I've been there so many times. And depression doesn't go away. It doesn't. It never goes away. It's just we have to learn to live with it and deal with it and conquer it as much as we can. And that's all I try to teach my boys, and that's all I try to teach myself. Every day is a new opportunity to do something better with yourself. And I had a bad habit when I was younger to ignore who I was and to ignore the things that I really shouldn't have. I originally wrote a script for this, but it's not working. But I don't know. I just kind of want to drive that home a little bit, that I know how life feels, and I know how hard it is, and I know when things get ugly, things get worse, and we just can't get a break. I completely get it. It's a hard world. And if anybody needs to talk in your life, like, just listen to them and try to be open-minded. But I'll tell you a couple of things. One, suicide is not a selfish act. It's somebody, if somebody has committed suicide, it's because the problems that they're going through outweigh their ability to cope with those problems. Any therapist will tell you that. That is 100% the truth. They're not out there, they're not doing these things to hurt you. And to tell someone that it's selfish is taking that problem and making it about you, which is selfish. So saying that in and of itself is a selfish thing to do. I have told some of my closer friends, like, I'm really thinking about doing this. I don't know. I can't get over this particular problem, and it's been various times in my life. It's a hard world to live in, and it's not selfish, and there's nothing wrong with them. That is another thing. People are like, what's wrong with you? That's like a huge problem. Like, that makes it sound like what's your damage, because as human beings, we think in language. We think of how words are brought to our attention, and saying that, like, be really careful sometimes, because I've seen some people, I've known some people in my life that have literally been like on that edge where if someone were to push them even a little bit, it'd be over. They would just do it right then, and they don't care who watches or whatever. And I know whenever I was making my attempts, I did not think about anybody else. All I could think of was, this problem's finally going to be over. I'm one time, my daughter had just passed away. I was working a crazy job that was so stressful. I was a general manager for McDonald's at the time. You know, I had like 40 employees under me. My daughter just passed away. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to tell them at work what was happening. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I went in my car and I took about 40, 50-ish Tylenol PMs, and then I drank 2 bottles of NyQuil, and then I tried. And my girlfriend at the time came out there, found out, rushed me to the ER, and then I'm coming to, you know, I'm starting to wake up, and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And that was like the worst feeling for me. Just someone ask me that, like, I'm gone through this horrible experience, and like then they attack me as a person and saying, well, you have some sort of something's damaged with you, what is wrong with you, blah 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 blah. That was the worst thing to say. Absolutely the worst thing to say. I woke up feeling even worse than I did before the attempt, and all that made me want to do was go up there and do it again, and this time make sure I was somewhere where no one was going to find me. So I just, you know, I don't know, I just wanted to talk about depression a little bit and suicide, because those are things that I have experience with. I've actually had friends that have died from it too, and so has my girlfriend has too. And I want to get it out there, so that if you know somebody out there that's doing this, or you think about somebody who's doing this, or it's happening to you, you know that you don't need to feel like I did. You don't need to feel that you're hurting other people for the way you are, because if you're thinking about suicide, it's because it's how you're feeling about something, and something's overwhelming you, and something's taking control, and you don't know how to get a hold of it, and you don't know how to fix it, and that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're doing something wrong, and you're not. Of course, I don't want people to commit suicide. Absolutely not. I will do anything in my power to prevent that. But at the same time, I understand that there are big problems out there, and there are things out there that are just so hard to deal with, and so overwhelming, and so scary, and you just don't want to deal with it. So, if and I've said it a bunch already, but you know, if you feel like that, please talk to somebody that you trust. Make sure it's somebody you trust. Don't go telling the guy you met last week about this, because they're not going to know how to relate to you at all. You know, if you're close with your parents, talk to your parents. If you're close with your family, talk to them. If you're not, talk to somebody that understands, because I've tried talking about depression with people who don't have it, and it's like I'm talking to a brick wall. You're most welcome, and I'm really glad that it's helping. So my name is Joe, obviously, for the greater part of 30 years. And another thing I can say is find an avenue, something you can do that will help you deal with it. Because for me, it's playing fighting games. Like, I'll play Street Fighter to calm down a little bit, or I'll play Marvel to calm down, or I'll play and even sometimes like Resident Evil games. But find something that you enjoy doing that helps calm you down. Find that like center, and always go to it when you need to, and don't let anybody else make you feel bad about doing that. So that's pretty much what I have to say on the subject of depression, suicide. Yeah, good. I'm a big fan of people using video games as a form of therapy if it works for you. Music and video games are kind of both the same for me. I was a musician for a long time, so that kind of helps the avenue there a little bit. It just, I just wanted to get it out there, so in case anybody's ever feeling that way and happens to stumble upon this, I will be uploading this to YouTube from my YouTube channel. I want everybody to understand that there is hope out there, and there's people that care, and there's people that want to help, and it might seem like there's no hope tomorrow, but there's always a day after tomorrow. And I know that sounds really stupid, but it's the truth. There is hope the next day, or the next day after that, or the next day after that, or the next day after that. So that's basically what I wanted to say as far as the depression stuff is concerned. And I hope that it helped. I hope that you guys enjoy it. Yep. Try to go a day at a time. That's the best way to do it, man. Absolutely. Because there are days where I just want to, even now, there's days like my kids just like get so much to deal with, and I'm just like want to put my head into a brick wall. And then there's days that they're, super great. And overall, my family's great. It's a scary world. It's a hard world. But I promise you, at the end of the day, there's always going to be hope. There's always going to be something out there that makes life worth living. So again, guys, I'm gonna cut the stream off for right now, and then I'm gonna bring it back up here in about 30 minutes, and I'm actually gonna do gameplay stuff. You guys know I'm trying to get through Resident Evil 4, the remake 0, and then I'm trying to get everything ready so that in October I can go and knock out Evil Within 2 and then start South Park 2. So thanks for watching. I hope that anything that I said, I hope it helps. Feel free to message me on Twitch if you need to talk. Of course, you guys can always send me Twitch messaging is a good way to do it. And low tier, if you need to talk anytime, just follow me. Just follow me on Twitch, and you can come find me every night. I'll be here at 10 Eastern. I don't know what time zone you're in, but I tend to start about 10 o'clock, and I go for every night's different, but I'm I've got a lot of games to get through, so I'm going to try to go through them till the end of October. Excuse me. But I'm going to hop off here and go eat, and then I will be booting up Street Fighter V to do some training mode tutorials for a friend of mine. I told him I'd help him out with, and then probably start booting up Resident Evil 4. So, alright guys, I will talk to you soon, and I hope that you enjoyed the video and that it helps. And please leave me feedback so I know how you enjoyed it. Alright guys, thanks.